Okay. Hello and welcome to the Richmond News 2020 Provincial Candidate Debate via Zoom. In the past, the Richmond News has hosted or at least participated in candidate meetings for elections at all levels of government. This year, obviously, that wasn't possible. However, we still felt it was essential that the citizens of Richmond have an opportunity to hear from the people vying to represent them in Victoria. When it comes to provincial and federal elections, many voters simply vote along party line, which is fine. But the strength of every party is made up by the strength of its individual representatives. This gives you the opportunity to assess each of those individuals on their own merit. Moreover, it gives each of the candidates an opportunity to address issues unique to Richmond and explain how their party's platform will play out in our community. This is the second of 4 candidate debates we will be hosting via Zoom. There will be one for each of the 4 ridings. Just so you know what to expect over the next 40 or 50 minutes, here is our agenda. We will begin by giving each of the candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves. We will then present questions under 4 main topics: healthcare, the Massey Tunnel, economic restart, and housing. We'll follow that by a couple of questions that have been sent in by our readers. Finally, each candidate will have 1 minute to offer a final word. So with that, I will hand the debate over to Maria Rantanen, our senior reporter, who will be moderating. Maria.
Hi. So the Richmond-Steveston riding has been a BC Liberal stronghold for decades. Known as a historic fishing village, Steveston was recently voted the best neighborhood in the Lower Mainland in a CBC bracket contest, but it is rife with controversy, mega mansions on farmland and development, to name just a few. This election, we have 3 candidates vying to take the riding of Richmond-Steveston. So in this debate, each candidate will be given 45 seconds to introduce themselves, after which we'll go to questions prepared by the Richmond News and our readers. So we will start with Kelly Greene. You have 45 seconds to introduce yourself.
Super, thanks very much for having me here. I'm speaking from the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I was born and raised in Richmond. This is my home that I live here with my family, and very much like you, when our kids fall down and get hurt, we go to the Richmond Hospital. Our kids go to the Richmond public schools, which are fantastic. But I also believe that in times of crisis, leaders step up. And as a proven leader on Richmond City Council and proven community advocate, I'm ready to step up here for you. We worked hard to stop mega mansions on farmland, work on affordability, and other issues such as transparency. I have a proven track record, and I encourage you to look it up online. That's one of the things I worked on, was accountability and transparency. So our online voting record's available for you there. We need a strong community response for this COVID-19 crisis. I'm offering myself in service to the community.
Thanks. Thanks, Kelly. And Matt Pitcairn, you're next.
Thank you very much. So I'm also coming to you from the traditional territory, the Musqueam First Nations. It's my honor to be here. Thank you very much to the Richmond News for this opportunity. I was born and raised in Steveston Village, and I couldn't think of a better place to spend my childhood. I spent every working day of my professional career in Richmond, except for 2 years, which I spent at the provincial legislature, and gained very insightful perspective into how policy is formed in Victoria and how the legislature works. For the last 8 years, I was at the Richmond Chamber of Commerce. The last 5 specifically, I was the president and CEO, and I was motivated to run, seeing the devastation and pain that's out there since March when COVID hit. I saw firsthand on a daily basis how badly Richmond employers and employees have been hurting. I've met many of those employees on the doorsteps recently as I safely knocked on doors and talked to people. And there's a lot of hardship out there. And I'm motivated to bring a voice representing small businesses to Victoria and do everything I can to help our Richmond economy get through this pandemic and all British Columbians. And that's my motivation to serve. And it would be my absolute honor to be that voice in Victoria for the residents of Richmond-Steveston. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And next, Vince Lee. Go ahead.
Thank you for the chance. My name is Vince Lee. I'm a new immigrant. I born in China. I came to Richmond for around 10 years ago. I chose Richmond-Steveston because that's the place I chose to live to raise my kids. After I moved to Stevenson, I have 2 kids right now. One is 2 years old, one is 5 months. So it's been quite a difficult time during pandemic. I know a lot of people, they know nothing about me. So basically, I chose not to put any signs of fires because I don't accept donations to to give more burden for people in financial difficulty during this time. And I don't go to hand out any flyers during COVID too. So I was hoping to help everybody that I can help during my election, and I could be one of you to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. And thank you for those introductions. So the Richmond News has prepared questions for the candidates, and we have also received some from our readers. For the prepared questions, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer the question, and we'll take turns who starts, after which everyone will be given the chance for a 1-minute response. So our first question is on healthcare. Richmond has been waiting for more than a decade for a new hospital. Long-term care facilities are under pressure as our population ages, and those needing mental health services are underserved. Our question is, what concrete plans does your party have in place to ensure healthcare, long-term care, and mental health services into the future? And Matt Pitcairn, you can go first. You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, thank you very much. So healthcare is a major issue in our community. I've been talking to many folks, and the construction of a new acute care tower at the Richmond Hospital is an absolute top priority for our community, and it's a top priority of mine. During the previous Liberal government, $100 million was invested in the Richmond Hospital, and some very needed investments. I benefited personally. I had 2 children born in the maternity ward in Richmond Hospital, which was recently upgraded, and there's a long list of other investments that have been made. But today, we desperately need a new acute care tower. The North Tower has been serving our community for around 60 years. It's not seismically fit for a major seismic event, which we're due for in the future at some point, and it needs to be replaced immediately. In 2016, before the change in government, the BC Liberals announced that they would begin the process of building a new tower. Since the NDP formed governments, we've had 2 announcements, but we've yet to see any action. We were told that a business plan would be out this month, but instead we're having an election during a pandemic over a year before the scheduled date, which in my opinion is frankly reckless and is causing a lot of anxiety and stress out there for voters because they're worried about their jobs, their kids going to schools, and now we're asking them to worry about voting in a provincial election a year early. So unfortunately, we were told we would have a business plan this month, but we don't, and we still haven't seen any action on actually building a new acute care tower. We've been told that it will be ready in 2024, but here we're almost at 2021, and you don't need to be an engineer to realize a project of that size does not come online in 3 years. So the people of Richmond cannot wait, and the BC Liberals would make building that hospital a top priority.
Thanks, Matt. Kelly Greene, it's your turn to answer the question.
Super. Thanks so much for that opportunity. I find it very disingenuous to say that we're not doing anything for the Richmond Hospital. It's a priority of mine. When my folks don't feel well, if they need medical attention, they're going to Richmond Hospital. If my son falls off his bike, we're going to Richmond Hospital. This is important for our community. And we actually have the request for proposals that were sent out to BC Bid for the project. So these are public documents showing that contracts are being awarded right now for the Richmond Hospital. So to say that it's not going ahead is disingenuous at best. It's very important that we replace the hospital tower. And not only are we going ahead with the project, the recent announcement was that upon reflection and investigation into the project, it needed to be double in size. So we're not just getting an acute care tower replacement, we're getting an acute care tower replacement, ER replacement, diagnostic imaging, additional health services for mental wellness, all the things that we need in this community. And also it will reduce wait times so that we can get the services we need right here at home. So I'm very pleased that we're going ahead with this. and it's full steam ahead, shovels in the ground in 2021.
Thank you, Kelly. And Vince, it's your turn to answer the question.
Great. Okay, I heard what those two parties were saying. There's my personal story. I got two kids. None of them were delivered in Richmond Hospital. Reason why? I got a couple of friends who were trying to deliver their kids in Richmond. They couldn't. When they go there, it's full. They had to be sent away. Like, so I can't risk my wife to go there to wait and then send to a different hospital. So I just take a chance to go to BC Women and St. Paul. It's far, but I have to do that. So I really think I don't think there's any discussion that we need to build a new hospital, a bigger one. There's a lot of population coming every day, every year. So, and another big issue I want to raise is, do we even have enough laborers to help during like for healthcare and for long-term care homes? My understanding, I was doing immigration for quite a bit too. So my understanding is we don't have enough people. We try to find enough qualified nurse, doctors, even caregivers. We just don't have. I know federal have their own way for caregiver to immigrate, but our province, I think we should give a certain kind of maybe BC PMP program to help caregiver to come. Then we have enough labor to actually to help with people we need. Because there's no question to build a bigger, a newer hospital. We just need more people to do that too. Thank you.
Thank you. And all of you will have a chance to respond. I just want to remind you, part of the question was also about long-term care and mental health services, which can also be touched on. So let's go back to Matt. You have 60 seconds to respond or expand.
So just to sum up, in the last 30 years, the NDP were in government for 13 years. The Liberals were in power for roughly 17 years. During the 13 years that the NDP was in government, 0 hospitals were built. During the 17 years the Liberals were in government, 14 hospitals were built. So I think one party clearly has a track record of investing in healthcare and building new hospitals. And to reiterate, the 2020 3-year fiscal plan that was released by the NDP government earlier this year had no mention and $0 committed to the Richmond Hospital. So while I understand work is taking place, $0 have been committed to actually build this project. As far as long-term seniors care, we've committed to investing $1 billion in upgrading long-term care facilities. That is urgently needed. We're also investing in a choice for seniors. So if a senior wants to age at home, we're creating tax credits to allow them to age at home, and we're going to be investing in long-term care facilities. On the mental health front, this to me is a nonpartisan issue. I've lost some friends, Richmond-Steveston residents, to opioids, to fentanyl. This to me is not a partisan issue. We've seen these numbers go up year after year. We need to put politics aside, and we need to do what we can to help people who are dying on the streets.
Thank you. And we'll move on. And Kelly, it's your turn to respond. 60 seconds.
Super. It's very clear that the BC Liberals don't understand the process on getting capital projects approved. What happens is the capital projects are approved by Treasury. In order for them to be approved by Treasury, you have to get a dollar value on them, which is what the request for proposal is, that goes out onto BC Bid. Hospitals aren't like going into your Safeway and buying a can of soup. You have to know what's going in it and how much it's going to cost. So it is on track. It is going through the normal process as it would have if it had been going ahead with the BC Liberals, which they didn't act on it when they had a number of critical reports saying the dire straits of the Richmond Hospital in the early 2010s. With respect to long-term care, we're committing to hiring additional 7,000 workers for seniors care. It's very important that we have that one-on-one care. We also have the first Ministry of Mental Health in Canada and the Richmond Foundry for youth who need those services.
And Vince Lee, do you have a response? You have 60 seconds if you'd like to respond.
Sure, thank you. I don't think any of the party actually did anything in Richmond. I know there's a lot of hospital has been built, but none of them in Richmond. We're talking about Richmond-Steveston. Like this is a place that we live and we need. And they're part of the reason why I'm thinking is maybe people in Richmond, they don't vote as that much. So we don't have them like that big power to control is how important we are in Richmond. So that might be a reason they didn't build anything here yet. But that's not fair. Like there's a lot of population in Richmond. They need a hospital. They need long-term care home. So we need to care about Richmond. Whoever in the party, whoever in Victoria, they need to care about Richmond people as just a regular person in Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince, and thank you all for your responses. Moving on to our second question, we're going to talk about the replacement of the George Massey Tunnel. The BC Liberals, when they were in government, set in motion a plan to build a 10-lane bridge to replace the tunnel. When the BC NDP were elected in 2017, after hearing opposition from the majority of local councils, they scrapped this 10-lane bridge plan and proposed new options, delaying the process, but claiming their plans were more closely aligned with local municipalities. So our question is, to replace the aging George Massey Tunnel, do you prefer a second tunnel or a bridge, and why? Kelly Greene, you can answer first. You have 90 seconds.
Super, thank you. I think it's really important that provincial government respects the knowledge that local councils have. All the local councils were opposed to this project except for one, the Christy Clark Vanity Mega Bridge. It's not appropriate for Richmond on so many levels. It would cause traffic chaos in Richmond because it would be a 10-lane bridge that feeds into a 2-lane highway on either side. So welcome to the most expensive parking lot in Canada. It's fiscally reckless. It doesn't solve the problem. What we need to do is look at a response that is respectful of the communities around us, that actually solves traffic problems by incorporating rapid transit lanes, active transportation lanes, and is respectful of the neighborhood. The proposal for this mega project is so enormously large that it would overshadow the farmland. The intersection would be north of Steveston Highway and 5 Road with a 3-story spaghetti interchange. It would annihilate the neighborhood and the local farmland, not to mention be really bad for pollution and noise in local neighborhoods. So it's not an appropriate project. It's Christy Clark's Vanity Project Bridge. We need to do something that's respectful of the areas around it.
Thank you, Kelly. And Vince, it's your turn to answer.
Okay, myself, I've been telling people I really want anything to be done for this turnout bridge. I've been working in Delta for 4 or 5 years. The first day, it took me 2 hours to come back. But I was single, I was young, I don't have family, so I was okay. What if you have kids to pick up in daycare? What if you're urging to go to somewhere? Can you wait for 2 hours? You can't. So do you have a choice? You don't. So it's been how long? It's been over 10 years that I know this turnout is an issue. I don't care who is in charge to build this turnout or bridge, but you guys, you need to care about the people that they want something to be done. There is no best way to do it at the current moment, which is better. One way is better, one way is not. If you, after 10 years, if you come back, you say, oh, you shouldn't do this. You should be better to doing that. That could be possible. But at this moment, people need something to be done. So that is my answer. We need something to be done. Whoever, if I'm elected, whoever is getting something done right now is who I'm gonna support with.
Thank you, Vince. And Matt, your turn to respond or to answer the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. So 3.5 years ago, the NDP government canceled the bridge project, which was shovel ready, and close to $100 million had been spent in preparation. 3.5 years later, we still have no idea what the NDP government is planning to do. Bridge and tunnel are still on the table. The former transportation minister gave no direction where this project was going. The MLA for North Delta just recently confirmed that the NDP doesn't have a plan. We don't know which direction this project's going. From working at the Richmond Chamber of Commerce for the last 8 years, I can say almost not a day went by that this issue didn't come up from one of our members. 80,000 vehicles a day go through this corridor. 70% of the Richmond economy is related to the movement of people and goods. This is the largest traffic bottleneck in Western Canada. And I agree with Vince to the point that we just need a solution. But if you look at the timeline for a tunnel, according to the NDP's own government numbers, is going to cost us 20% more for 20% less capacity, and it's going to take a decade to come online. The citizens of Richmond and the region cannot wait a decade. This is a provincial highway, and we have a shovel-ready bridge project. The city of Richmond has some valid concerns, and I recognize and I agree, and I've talked to mayor and council over the years. Modifications can be made to this project. You know, we may only need 8 lanes today, but if we have capacity for 10, we know by 2045 that there will be a lot of pressure on this. So we have a shovel-ready bridge project. Things can be done to the Steveston interchange. That is misinformation that the bridge would overshoot Steveston Highway. That can be toned down and it can move forward. Shovels can be in the ground next year.
Thanks, Matt. And so we're going to move on to responses. You have 60 seconds to respond. Kelly, we'll start with you.
Super. It's very interesting that you can promise a project is shovel ready and then make modifications on the fly. That's not reality. It's a mega bridge that's going to decimate this community. People need to have a solution. And I'm really proud to say about our work on City Council, we've met a number of times with the project committee, and they have gone all over the Lower Mainland and spent a lot of time with councils, in particular Richmond and Delta, to make sure that they're respecting the local communities and actually meeting the needs and not building an unnecessary parking lot that, by the way, wouldn't even be anchored in bedrock. So we live in a liquefaction earthquake zone. Do you want to be on a bridge that's built on mud? Because that's what you're talking about. And it would overshoot it. That is the project on the table, is the Christy Clark Vanity Project. We're getting $40 million of safety upgrades. Thank you very much.
And Vince, do you have a response? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if all the work that we have done 3 years ago can be used for the new bridge or new tunnel or whatever. Because what I noticed is a lot of those dirt already grows some trees or grass on it, so you cannot use it anymore for engineering. And another thing I want to bring up is there was no congestion during pandemic when we shutting everything down. Well, it might be a good thing, but it might be a good point that you can actually think pandemic might change a lot. People might start to working remotely. They don't have to go across the tunnel, the bridge every day anymore. So that might change. So for environmental friendly side, maybe we just need a little bit more project, but then less people are gonna travel around after pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. And Matt, final response from you, 60
I
seconds.
think this has to be restated that the NDP government has no solution. They have no plan. Bridge and tunnel are still on the table. And if we do proceed with the tunnel, we're looking at 10 to 15 years likely before that project opens. There is significant First Nations opposition to the tunnel concept. And the people of Richmond, the 80,000 vehicles that go through that corridor a day, 60%, which I must say are to and from Richmond, need a solution. And an extra $1 billion for a smaller bridge a decade from now is not acceptable. And we have a plan to move forward on a timeline that will be accelerated, and we'll work with the city of Richmond to address local concerns.
Thank you, Matt. So we're living through a global pandemic, which early on shut down large parts of the economy, with the tourism and hospitality industry in Richmond particularly hard hit. So our third question is, what specific actions will your government take to restart the economy? And I will let Vince Lee start with 90 seconds. You can answer the question.
Great, thank you. For me, I think government need to help a lot for small business and for all the business that's in Vancouver, in BC right now. I know a lot of people. For myself, I'm a small business owner. I'm doing a daycare, and my daycare is like there's no kids in daycare during those 2-3 months. It's crazy. So, but thankfully, government was helping, but it's nearly not enough. So what I'm suggesting is, in the next few years, we should cut tax, we should defer tax. So we need to actually help small business to open up, to operate. And my another suggestion is it's going to be really hard for people to find new jobs right now. It's lots of layoffs. Nobody is actually hiring a lot of people. So I would suggest we have a new facility to train people how to start their own business, something online or something that can support your family to start with. I know a lot of people don't know how. That's fine. We're gonna help you with it. We're gonna open a school or facility to train young entrepreneur to at least do something. You just don't stay at home and do nothing. So I hope government can help people with small business, with young entrepreneurs. Thanks.
Thank you, Vince. And Matt, it's your turn to answer the question. 90 seconds.
I think supporting our small businesses in British Columbia and here locally in Richmond is an absolute top priority. You mentioned the tourism sector here locally. There's roughly 20,000 employees in Richmond alone that work in the sector, and most of those people are out of work today. I've been phoning more and more constituents, and they've lost their jobs. I went into a local business the other day, and he had 15 employees when he started the year. He has 5 today, and if he doesn't get real rent relief, he's probably out of business next month. So things are really, really tough out there. And I think we need to take these challenges incredibly seriously. So to begin with, the BC Liberals have committed to a PST exemption for 1 year, followed by 3% year 2. The idea behind that is to put more money in people's pockets that they will hopefully spend into their local economies, because these local entrepreneurs, small, medium businesses need literally all the support and help they can get. We've also committed to a direct rent relief program. The previous program, which was a collaboration led by the federal government in collaboration with the province, from my time in the chamber, it was not working. It was not getting to the people that needed it. Many landlords were not applying. And rent relief is one of the most significant costs that businesses are facing. Without that relief, their revenue's down, their overhead's still high, they're not able to stay viable. One thing that I find really disappointing is we had immense collaboration between all 3 parties in the legislature when the pandemic hit, and a $1.5 billion relief package was committed by all parties. Unfortunately, we only learned of that relief package literally days before the election, and many of those funds are tied up and on hold because we're in an election. We need to be supporting businesses now. We shouldn't be campaigning, but we are, and we need to get through this. We need to get back working
Matt.
together to support small business in British Columbia.
Thank you, Matt. Kelly, it's your turn to respond.
Super. I think it's a great question about restarting the economy, because the economy in BC is made of people. We need to look at all different aspects and ways of supporting people through this crisis. One of the things I'm really excited about is the 1% of GDP recovery investment fund. So that would be used for capital projects around BC, including here in Richmond, to make sure that we have the services that we need here to support us in a healthy way. So that could be anything from new schools or hospitals to rapid transportation, so that when we get COVID under control, we're ready, hot out of the gate, to get back to it. We're going to have a tourism task force to make sure that we're getting the right supports to the people that need it. As well as in Richmond, agriculture is very important. We're going to be going forward with agri-tech improvements to make sure that farmers can get the best value for their goods. It's very important that we look at a suite of solutions. I think that having a PST tax cut is fiscally reckless, blows an $8 billion hole in the budget for no reason except to, give a really good discount for somebody who's going to buy a Range Rover. But the single mom in my neighborhood, she's going to have to pay. Oh, actually, no, you're right. There is no PST on groceries, so she's not saving any money. But the guy going and buying the Range Rover is. We need to make sure we're not cutting unnecessarily so that we can maintain services for people that need it.
Okay, we're going to start a second round. Vince, you have 60 seconds to respond to what your colleagues are saying.
Okay, here's another story about myself. I've been calling Minister of Child for, hey, we're under a second wave again. There's no fund, there's nothing. Everybody is almost shutting down. Anybody can help us? What my God answer is, sorry, there's no minister at this moment because we're doing election. So who else can help us? There's nobody, right? Because we're doing the election. So it's really, for me, the election for right now isn't helping the economic recovery. And COVID might be here for another 1-2 years. So we should really learn from the other countries like Singapore, who is doing really good controlling the virus while still doing some business recovery. So that's a model that we need to learn from outside of BC. I would really suggest whoever in charge need to look at a bigger picture right now.
Thank you, Vince. Matt, you have 60 seconds to respond.
I find it interesting that my opponent, the NDP has a long-held policy that the PST is a regressive tax, and we know it benefits people at all ends of the income spectrum. And I find it interesting that now it's only benefiting the rich, and it seems to be a narrative in this campaign with us versus them, and I find it very troubling. I think right now this is about all of us. This is about British Columbians. This is about getting through this together, and we need to do everything we can to support the parents out there, the employees, the employers. We're in really tough times. So the PST is a step to do that. Eliminating small business tax is another step. Having a nonpartisan fair tax commission to look at the 23 new taxes that were brought in by this NDP government. Roughly $5 to $6 billion in additional tax revenue has been raised on the backs of 23 new taxes on British Columbians in the last few years. We're going to take a look at that, and we're going to see what we can do to alleviate some of that stress on people. We are going to have deficits, and I think whether it's the Greene, the NDP, the BC Liberals, we've accepted that deficits are part of our future for the next few years until we get through this pandemic. And we need to work together to get through it. And then we need to build a bigger, better, stronger British Columbia. So this extreme measure with the PST, it's a drastic measure for drastic times, but it's something that we need to do to get through this.
Thanks, Matt. And Kelly, your final response?
Thank you. I think it's a really good start to have the $300 million in small business credits to make sure that we're supporting our small businesses. I also think it's really important to talk about why we're having an election now. There's still going to be a pandemic a year from now. It's still going to be here. So no matter what, we're going to be having an election in the middle of a pandemic. What it's really important to do is to do it right now so that we can have a crisis response that's tied to our recovery response, so that we can have a nice, smooth trajectory to ensure that we're looking after the people that need looking after, because it is about British Columbians. Absolutely. And my opponent is very interesting in talking about these 23 taxes that are on the backs of British Columbians. There are things, to be clear, like empty homes tax. So people who have lots of extra homes can't leave them empty anymore. So that brought 10,000 homes back onto the market for renters. Things like being taxed a little bit extra on your home worth more than $3 million, which is incredible privilege.
And thank you. We're going to move on to our fourth question. And it is on housing affordability and diversity. So middle-class families are moving farther out. Young people struggle to find affordable rental housing, and to say nothing of our most vulnerable residents struggling just to keep a roof over their heads. If elected to government, how will your party create greater housing diversity? And we'll start with Matt. You can answer first. You have 90 seconds.
Yeah, this is an issue that hits near and dear to me, and my family has had our share of struggles in the housing market, especially in recent years as we started having children and need space to raise our family. And this is a challenge that I think individuals at all ends of the spectrum face, young, middle-aged, old, and we absolutely need to do more. We live in one of the most beautiful, desirable parts of the planet. We're expecting 1 million more people to move into Metro Vancouver in the next 20 years. And I believe we need supply. We need adequate, diverse set of supply at all ends of the spectrum. We need rentals, and we need to work together to achieve this. I think the province and cities like Richmond and cities across the region have a duty to work together to bring the kind of supply that we need to meet the needs of our growing and aging population. So some of the specific measures that we've committed to are an incentive fund for municipalities, supporting zoning reform and looking at how residential rental tenure zoning can be used to upzone properties and create more rental supply rather than devaluing existing supply that we have. We're looking at bringing in a speculation tax that is focused on flipping properties and to really make an impact. The current speculation tax, well-intentioned, hasn't done a lot for us here in Richmond. We still have more affordable homes, we have values that have increased. We have rents that have increased, and it hasn't had a real material impact on vacancy rates. So I think we need to do more. I mean, I see the empty homes in parts of West Richmond just like everybody else, and the impact that has had in our schools. We need to create healthy, vibrant, dynamic neighborhoods.
We're going to have to wrap it up there. Thank you. And Kelly Greene, your turn to answer the question.
Thanks. It's really important that we keep on the progress that we've been making, that we not fall behind, that we keep moving forward together in our program to bring more housing and affordable housing to British Columbians. We've built 2,500 units of supportive housing for the most vulnerable British Columbians, and we're going to be building 5,000 in 10 years. This is really important because we do have a homeless problem in regions across the Lower Mainland in Victoria, that we need to keep working on that. It's really important that we do keep the empty homes tax because it is encouraging people to get those properties rented. It brought 10,000 units back onto the market. And that's an independent figure. That's not something that came from the party. That was independent. So when you're talking about bringing 10,000 units back on, it's not necessarily about flipping. It's about houses sitting empty. We're going to make sure that we're taking that the empty homes tax revenue and building houses with that, building homes so that people have somewhere to live. We are all impacted by the affordability crisis, but it was really caused by speculation and money laundering under the BC Liberals, which really flourished and it really damaged our neighborhoods. But we are on the road to recovery, and I'd like to keep us on track.
Thanks, Kelly. And Vince Lee, it's your turn, 90 seconds to answer.
Okay, first I need to thank the government, actually, at least federal part, that allowed the mortgage deferral. I'm not sure any of you did that. I had to, because I had to quit my job during pandemic because my second baby was born too. So I had to get the rent deferral for 6 months. So I really understand how hard affordable housing is, like how important that is. My suggestion would, again, we need to look at the like a broader picture of how other countries are doing. Another, like I'm from mainland China, but I keep using Singapore as an example because they're doing really good. I have to say they're doing really good. They have government housing. I would suggest we should do the same. Metro Vancouver is seven size bigger compared to Singapore and only have half size of the population. And we're still talking about we cannot afford the place, but Singapore is doing quite well in job, in government housing. Everybody can actually afford a place to live that they want to. So learn. We need to keep learning. We need to keep learning from whoever is doing great in the world right now. It's pandemic. We cannot just doing everything the same anymore. A lot of tax is needed, but if that's the only way, if that's the correct way, we should really think about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Vince. And we're going to do one more round for this, 60 seconds. Matt, it's your turn to respond.
Yeah, no, again, just to reiterate, this is an area I'm very passionate about. I think we need to do a lot better in the housing affordability space. We have a lot of young families that are struggling. We have a lot of seniors that have all their equity tied up in their home. They'd like to downsize, they'd like to retire, and they find it challenging to find an affordable option to do that. And we've seen the impacts that housing unaffordability has had here in Richmond. We've seen many neighborhoods that are now filled with empty homes. We've seen young families forced into other areas because they can't afford to find somewhere to live. And if elected to be the representative for Richmond-Steveston in Victoria, this is an area that I would be incredibly passionate about and fight tooth and nail to get the housing affordability options that we need. I'm committed to working with cities like Richmond and others throughout the region because so many of these decisions are controlled at local city halls, and we need to do a better job working together. As I mentioned before, 1 million more people. This is one of the best places in the world to live. Demand is high and supply is not where we need it to be. So we have to work together to create the kind of supply that will build the healthy, vibrant communities that we deserve and demand here in Richmond and beyond.
Thank you. And Kelly, 60 seconds to respond.
Thank you. One of the things that we're working on is the housing hub, where we're getting together with municipalities and nonprofits and other builders of housing to make sure that we're getting more supply onto the market. We are also needing to talk about rental rates. So we'd be freezing rental rates and tying the rental rates to inflation thereafter, so that we make sure that we're not getting that runaway pressures on rental rates that we are seeing in the past. This affects me very personally. My own sister had to move out of Richmond because of affordability issues. But we are making progress. I just the other day had a message from someone in the Dixon area who had previously said, you know, we often would walk by empty houses, but in the last 6 months to a year, it's really changing, that there are people living in the houses that weren't before. So that's evidence that the empty homes tax is working and that those revenues can be reinvested in more housing for people here. Very excited to keep making progress.
Thank you, Kelly. And Vince, final response, 60 seconds.
Again, I'm graduated from Southern School of Business in UBC. It's a really simple principle here. If you have a lot of demand, just give a lot of supply. That's the easiest answer, and market can arrange everything by itself. So I think there's no question that we have tax. Okay, we need supplies. We just need to build more supplies, and it should be built soon. And we need to look at a future too. We're gonna have a lot of people, so we just need to get that done ASAP. Thanks.
Thanks, Vince. So those were the questions that were prepared by the Richmond News. We have received some from our readers, and I'm going to allow each of you to answer once for 60 seconds. In fact, the first one kind of links back to the last topic that we were talking about. And the question comes from John Roston, who is a Steveston resident. Richmond has a critical shortage of rental housing, and the city has refused to use the power given to it by the provincial government to designate all or part of new housing development as rental tenure. Should the BC government intervene to require a substantial amount of rental housing in large developments? And Vince, you can answer first. You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I think that's that's a great question. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. So we need, in order to solve this problem, we just need to build more supply here. So we have to get more rental or rental only, or like government house that you can buy in a few years. Like make it reasonable, because people want to own their place anyway. Like sometime later, they should own their place. It's kind of their fortune, right? So I think it's for sure. We need to have this large development going and get that sooner, so people are not moving out of this city or this riding. Otherwise, we don't have many people here. Without people, we have nothing. There's nothing here.
Thank you, Vince. And Kelly, your turn to answer the question.
Thank you. It very is much about people and making sure that we've got homes for folks to live here in Richmond. I would want to partner with the city in order to build more homes, but it is the city's determination on what goes where. So if you are not happy about what's going where, you need to very much talk to your Richmond City Council and make sure that they understand what your views on this topic are. The email is mayorandcouncillors@richmond.ca. I'm very much interested in bringing forward this kind of discussion, because we do need to have more rental housing. I'd like to partner with the city of Richmond to get that built. And I've got the knowledge to make that happen. So yeah, we can't though go and tell people what they can and cannot do, overriding the city.
Thank you, Kelly. And Matt, 60 seconds for your answer.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I have to agree with Kelly that, this is a municipal authority, but the province does have a role to play. And we did see under the NDP government, they brought in a new tool, residential rental tenure zoning. And it's a powerful tool if used correctly. And unfortunately, what we saw discussed in Richmond and New Westminster and some other jurisdictions was using this tool in a way that would actually downsize the use and devalue those lands. And they would, in the short term, protect existing rental properties, but they would ensure that we wouldn't see additional supply on those sites. So if I was elected, I would be committed to ensuring that residential rental tenure zoning is used to upzone, to create new supply, because we really need new supply in Richmond. I can only think of 2 projects in the last 20 years, purpose-built rentals that have come online. And with housing prices where they are, we need rentals now more than ever. And in fact, the PST cut that we've announced will incentivize rental buildings. It'll make them more cost effective. And hopefully in the next 2 years, we would see more new rental projects getting started.
Okay, thank you. Our second question is from Andrew Wade. He's the Executive Director of the Richmond Arts Coalition. Again, each of you will have 60 seconds to answer. And his question is, due to the inability to have crowds gather during the pandemic, the arts sector is going to be heavily impacted until a vaccine receives widespread usage. How does your government intend to support artists, art organizations, and arts facilities, and to prevent a permanent loss of performance spaces? And Matt, you can answer first.
Yeah, no, that is such a great question, and arts are such an important part of a vibrant community. Arts and culture are very important, and I know these individuals are being hit so hard right now. I have a good friend who had a very successful business, and the day the lockdown hit, his business went from being a healthy, growing business to zero revenue, laid off everybody but himself, and he's on the ropes. And if something doesn't change quickly, his business is done. So these folks need all the help that they can get. I think in the short term, I'm really hoping that we can see rapid testing that will at least allow some form of crowds to get together, and we can safely know that those environments are COVID free. So I think short of a vaccine, rapid testing will hopefully allow some of these folks to get by. But in the meantime, they need as much government assistance and support as possible, because we can't let these people go under, because as we get through recovery and back online, arts and culture is such an important part of our society. So I'm absolutely committed to helping these individuals any way I could.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And Kelly, your turn to answer.
Thank you. The BC government, under the NDP, has launched in response to COVID-19 the Showcase Creative BC, which is an online hub so that artists can get their content to people who want to connect with them and have a cultural experience, an artistic experience. I think that's really important. We've also got a number of measures for affordability, and those include the one-time credits for people who have an income under a threshold. We're also going to be launching a $2 million COVID relief program for the arts sector. I think this is really important that it's targeted. It will help to build new cultural spaces so that we can have cultural activities and renovations in our local economies.
Thank you. And Vince, your turn to answer.
I would like to say it's a time for a change. People have been doing the same for a long time in Canada, in BC, in Vancouver. COVID might be something that you really need to think about. Your life is actually going to change for the next few years or even longer time. So I still remember 2003 when SARS was there in China. Everybody was like panic, right? But after that, we got everything online. A lot of stuff starting to grow online, just like artists. I think right now, online is not a technical issue. It's for people's idea. You need to start to thinking about that. It's easy to do it. So it can solve a lot of problems with everything online. I would suggest for now, people really need to think about a future, a changed future, and starting online.
Thank you. Thank you, Vince. So thank you all for answering our questions, both from the ones prepared by the Richmond News and from our readers. And now I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to wrap up. You have 1 minute to give your closing remarks. And we'll start with Kelly Greene, who is running for the BC NDP.
Thank you. I think that we've made fantastic progress in Richmond. We're moving ahead with the Richmond Hospital. We've had investments in over 8 schools to make them safe for seismic activity at over $81 million. We've got record investments into childcare and seniors care. We need to keep going forward. We need to make sure that we are continuing to be strong on money laundering, which proliferated under the BC Liberals, that we continue to be tough on speculation because that erodes our communities. We want to make sure that we're moving forward, and the way forward is to continue together. So please join me. I offer myself in service to the community so that we can keep making progress on the things that matter to you and your family. I'm here with you, living in the same neighborhoods, going to the same schools. We need to be together. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Matt Pitcairn, the BC Liberal candidate. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you. You know, it would be my absolute honor and privilege to serve the residents of Richmond-Steveston. Having spent the last 8 years at the Richmond Chamber of Commerce, I've gotten an intimate knowledge of every corner of our city, businesses, large, small, and everything in between. And I think I could bring some really valuable insights and a real strong voice to Victoria to be the strongest possible advocate for the needs of not just Richmond-Steveston, but Lulu Island as a whole. And I think I have a proven track record of collaboration in our community. I was very proud to help found the Richmond Community COVID-19 Task Force in partnership with the City of Richmond. It was an unprecedented collaboration with key stakeholders from every side of Lulu Island. I believe I have a proven leadership record. I have relationships with folks all across the city, and it would be my honor to be their voice. And I'm here to build community, to close the divides that I see in Richmond. And I think that we have such amazing potential. And it would be my honor to sit in Victoria and help us realize that potential together. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And Vince Lee, running as an independent candidate. You have a minute to wrap up.
Great. Actually, a lot of people are asking me why I'm independent. It's easy to answer, actually. I think everybody knows that NDP and Liberal, they're two big parties, and one of them want to be in control. And so they have to think about their party. And I don't. All I need to care is the people in Richmond, in Steveston. So that's all I need to do for the people that live in there. That's a good thing for me. And for myself, I'm actually being there with you with everything as a small business owner, as a parent, as a person who had to defer their mortgage. So I really understand how a regular person, how ordinary person feel during this pandemic. So you can vote for me because I am one of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And once again, thank you to all the candidates for taking part in our forum. I'm Maria Rantanen. Eve Edmonds, editor of the Richmond News, has the final word.
Yes, well, thank you, Maria. That was great. I also really want to thank the candidates for participating in this debate in particular, but also for putting themselves out there as candidates. It's not a small job, but it's critical in keeping our democratic process vibrant. Finally, I want to thank all of you who tuned in to watch this debate. I hope you found it helpful in not just deciding who to vote for, but also in understanding some of our community's key issues and considering best ways forward. Thank you and good night.